Hey everyone, Paul ISM. Welcome to part 2 of our USACC group build of our Monogram 24 scale 1970 Plymouth GTX. So, part 2 today. We did all the clear coat paint last time, and today we're going to focus on the engine, the running gear, the wheels, and the interior. It's a very simple kit, this, not a high parts count kit, so we're going to get most of the work done today, and we can finish it up in part 3. But so far, it's been a great kit. You know, it's an older kit. I think it's from 1986, I think it originates from. But it goes together well. It's not too bad at all. I even bought the Revel, the Roadrunner as well, which is this, well, basically the same kit, isn't it, I think, to do at a later date. But it's not too bad at all. I really can't complain. It is very simple, but it's a cool looking kit of a cool looking car as well. So let's delve straight in. After these messages, we'll get going with our running gear and engine. Hey everyone, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, get notified of our latest videos, give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and leave a comment. I do read and appreciate every comment you guys and girls leave behind. I may not reply to them all, but they are all appreciated. And there's a link in the description of the video that takes you to a big long list of all handy videos and a lot of the products I use in my videos. You now have the chance to support the video content creation by using Patreon or the PayPal me link in the description down below. All the videos will always remain free to watch. This is just your chance to help support the videos. Hey, so we're back on with the 70 Plymouth GTX. Today's goal, we're going to get the chassis all cut off, prepared, primed, painted, get the engine done. Maybe even get the interior done today. It's a very simple kit, this. It's not a high parts count kit at all. So not a huge amount of work to do. And we can see if we can get it together and maybe get the body test fitted. That'd be nice to see. Obviously with these kits, a lot of it can be twisted and what have you, like we did with the Super B. So always a bit of a worry where it's going to sit like, but we'll see. So clean up all the parts with a combination of our sprue cutters, a knife, some sanders, etc, etc, wherever it takes to do the job. Get everything de-seamed, de-nubbed, and get it all prep for primer. So some parts we're going to glue on in preparation because the engine block is primarily orange. We will hand paint a lot of parts later on this, including the transmission and a few other detail parts. But we're going to start off, like I said, we'll clean up all the parts. You can see all the chassis and engine parts up on the top. We're going to glue the engine halves together using my Tamiya extra thin Plasti-Weld mix. So just hold the two halves together. Now the fit of the kit, considering all the kit, isn't bad at all. It's not too bad a kit. It's actually quite a pleasure to work on. The seams aren't too bad. The cleanup's not too bad on the parts. And yeah, fit overall is pretty good. So overall, quite surprised at the kit. It's approaching 40 years old. The kit I think is like 36 years old. So it's definitely no spring chicken, but no dramas at all putting it together. So I'm just going to assemble it as per the instructions, looking at real life references. I know absolutely nothing about these engines. I know it's a 440, it's got a 6-barrel carb, it's orange, that's all I know. I know nothing about it at all. My American car knowledge is pretty poor. But loads of reference pictures online, some good friends in the Hangout to ask questions to. And we can get it. And so like I say, the goal of today is to get as many parts on the engine block as we can and paint them all as and where required. So just referring to instructions, clean the part up as we go, gluing them on. Now, as we found with that bonnet in the last previous episode, the plastic is very, very brittle. So be careful cleaning parts up, make sure things don't snap off. The glue still glues everything home really well. Considering it's very, very brittle plastic, it's not too bad. Now we've got several pieces of chrome. Oh, glug all over the instructions. Well done, Paul. So the initial plan was to dechrome it. So we've got some cheap and nasty bleach from Mazda, which is the UK version of Walmart. And it didn't touch the chrome at all. Normally we get a reaction off this, it's within a few seconds. It actually strips it in about a minute, or you have to leave it a bit longer, but there was no reaction off this whatsoever. So I thought, right, okay, we'll glue them in place and we'll just paint over them. I've done it before, no problem at all. Some lacquer primer and we'll paint it. So not a drama at all. And test fitting the exhaust, manifold, headers, whatever you want to call them here. And we're going to drill in place the HT lead, ignition lead placements where I want them. I think I've got them in kind of the right place. I'm not 100% sure. But we've got a 0.5mm drill bit. We'll make a pie of the hole and we'll widen it later if we deem it necessary. So putting the headers in place, the exhaust manifolds to get us where we need to be. And then obviously later on we can come back in and widen the holes as required. Like so. There we go. So with those done, we can now drill out our distributor. Now the kit distributor, bit of a strange one. Not seen one like that before. Luke Ward, Wardy Boy over at Scale Motor, 3D printing me these distributors a while back. Sadly, when you drill into the ignition tabs, I suppose they're called, on top, they tend to snap off. So what I've done is I've sanded this absolutely smooth. And I'm going to put 9 actually, holes of my own in there. Doing a plus sign, equidistant first, and then in between each one to try and get a symmetrical. Using a 0.5mm drill bit in our pin vise and just taking our time and going around and drill them all in place. So this is the easiest way of doing it. I really need to get some of the pre-wired ones, but we can't really get them in the UK that easily. They're definitely a bit more difficult to come by, but they are something I would like to add to the modelling supplies. Now, where the distributor fits in, it's a much larger stalk on the resin one. So we need to widen the hole on top. So I can't remember the size of the drill bit. I think it's like 1.8 or 2 mil. I'm just going to very gently drill into the top, and it's a nice snug fit for the distributor, which to be honest wouldn't even need glue, and I don't think I did glue it in the end once it was painted. So we're just going to very carefully, if you squint, we'll go into focus. There you go. If you squint, it goes focused. Just very carefully drill in place, like so, and then a quick test fit of the distributor, and there you go. Fits in there nice and snug. We will trim that later to the appropriate size. And then the chassis. So we've got some subframes to glue in place here. It's all going to be painted black, so we can glue this in place now. So it's all been cleaned up. A quick test fit shows that it fits in place really well. Like I say, the fit on this kit, I cannot say a bad thing about it all. Pretty good, to be honest. Actually, quite surprising. Obviously, the super we did was a bit of a nightmare with the twisted chassis and body. This is all quite nice and straight. Quite simple arrangement to connecting the part, all the parts clicking positively where they're supposed to go. Actually quite a good kit. Actually not a bad kit at all. I bought the Roadrunner version of this as well from Revell. So later on down the line I have another build to do. Now the kit exhausts are moulded into the leaf sprung suspension and differential. Not a fan of that, but hey, it is what it is. So we're going to paint those up and we'll brush paint the exhaust later on. I don't like the kit exhausts at all, so I'm going to cut those off and I'm going to have my own straight tailpipes in. I'm not a big fan of the oval tailpipes. They were solid. They'd have been a bit of a pig to open up, and I thought this will look much neater in my eyes. Whether you like it or not, it's a personal preference, I suppose. So I've got some plastic styrene tube that I've cut to size, just straightening the edges up to make sure they're nice and straight. I've got my plastic reamer, which incidentally my oldest tool I own in the modelling cave. This one, I've had this for over 12 years. Long time. It's been a part of my modelling daily use tools. Well, maybe not daily use, but regular use tools. We're going to ream at the end, which will thin out the walls of the plastic and make them look much more realistic as exhausts. So it's just a case of going through until you get the thickness you require. As you can see, just slowly. Does it perfect. And then I'm going to measure it. I'm going to go a little bit longer to begin with. Looking at the size of the plastic, it looks like it might just slip over the existing exhaust pipe. So if we can cut that off, and then as you can see, I've cut off the existing exhaust. And look at that, it fits on absolutely perfect. And there we go, we'll just leave that loose for now. What I'm going to do is chamfer the edges to roll them over so it looks like more of a cleaner transition from the exhaust to the pipe, which is, in my eyes, how it would look on the real car if it was to be a real exhaust. So using a UMP 220 thinny sponge sander, we can round off the edges. And like I say, quick test fit. We'll cut another one to size as well. But I'm just going to leave that on there for now and we'll test fit it with the body on. So I've got the body on in place with the chassis. We're going to place the rear leaf sprung suspension on in place and have a look how the exhaust sits. And first time round, it's a touch long. Definitely is a little bit long. It's almost like a wheelbarrow. With two of those, you can pick it up and walk off with the car. So we've cut it a touch shorter. And with the exhaust located in place, I think that's about right. I think that is about right. So happy with that. So we can whip that off and put another one in place. And there we go. Done exactly the same to the side. And they sit nice. Quite like those exhausts. They look good. Just a quick test fit to see how they overhang the back of the car. Obviously, we've got the low bumper to go on in place first. But I'm happy with that. That looks good. And then a little bit of our Tamiya Extra Thin mix just to secure those in place. To be honest, could have quite happily left those loose. But decided to glue them in place. And we're going to prime and paint this in one lot. So there we go. There is our exhausts. Nicely hollowed out, nicely reamed out, nice and thin sidewalls on the end. They're going to look quite good. And then we're in the spray booth. So the engine's going to be painted orange. I need to mix some paint. We got a mixer orangey red for the block. So we're going to prime that in white Tamiya Fine Surface Primer. It's been decanted out the can, left to off gas, thinned about 20% with Tamiya Lacquer Thinner Retarder. We've got our 0.3mm iWater HPC Plus at about 16 psi. I'm just going to put a couple of light coats down to lightly prime it. And obviously, pay attention to the chrome parts. Don't be hosing the paint on. Get a nice dust of primer down first and come back in later. And then we're going to prime our chassis and Mr. Servicer 1500 black. Same airbrush, same pressure. And this is thinned about 60% with Mr. Hobby Leveling Thinner. And again, a couple of light coats, getting all those angles and recesses, which is a lot of them on the chassis. So make sure you keep turning it and getting the angles right and getting in all the nooks and crannies and get it all perfectly primed. Now we're probably going to leave the chassis in this colour because it calls for a flat black. I'm not going to do flat black. The Mr. Servicer 1500 black dries are sort of a semi-gloss, not semi-gloss, semi-flat. It's like in between a semi and a full flat. So I'm happy with that. But the exhaust and the rear suspension, we're going to paint in the same paint. And again, we'll probably leave the suspension and differential in the Mr. Servicer, and we'll brush paint the exhaust steel later on. So the Mr. Servicer prime goes down really well. Nice thin coats building it up. I usually find 2, maybe 3 coats, builds up really nice. You don't need to be careful of hosing it on, but definitely the first coat I'll put a little bit thinner rather than going crazy, but it is quite a forgiving primer to spray. Now for orange, for the orangey red colour, I've mixed Tamiya LP7 and LP51, which is orange and red, by eye till I get a nice orangey red. And again, using the iWater HPC Plus, we're going to put down several coats, building this up to a nice wet coat until we get a nice depth of colour. And again, lots of angles and recesses to get into. So just make sure you take your time building it up, don't be hosing it on. As you can see, coverage is quite good for an orange, not too bad over white. It's about the second coat now, I think we're on here. It's the end of the second coat. We'll give it 3 in total to make sure we get all the areas. The air cleaner's getting done the same. Disappointing in the kit not to get the air cleaner decal, which I've got with other kits like this, but hey, it is what it is. A touch more paint, and we'll give the engine another light coat, just making sure we get all those angles in one final paint of this. And yeah, I think the colour's spot on. The camera makes it look a lot darker red than it actually is. It's definitely more of a reddy orange. You should be able to see it later on in the pictures. But yeah, happy with that mix. Simple mix. Don't know the ratio at all. Just did it by eye until I was happy with the colour. Distributor, we're doing an LP18, which is whole red, I believe. Just the colour I chose. Like I say, we're going to paint down the stalk as well, and we'll cut that shorter later as required. And then the exhausts, we're painting in LP61 metallic grey. So just a dark metallic grey colour. And on the pulleys on the auxiliary belt system, we're going to use our circle template with some masking tape strategically placed so we don't overspray other parts further up. Line the pulleys up with the holes, and then with a very light coat of the LP61. There we go, a quick blast through. Job done. There's our pulleys painted perfectly. Bit of alliteration there. Triple P. Pulleys painted perfectly. There we go. Now the exhaust, we're going to brush paint. Like I say, it's all intermolded into the suspension, so to mask it would have been an absolute nightmare. So I kind of opted out of it and thought we'll brush paint it. I've been meaning to try this steel colour Vallejo Model Air. So here we go. We've got a nice flat brush from Tamiya. I'm going to put down, only really takes one coat with this. They're pretty thin for the airbrush, which means they brush paint pretty well, to be honest. Not too bad. As long as you don't go over them too many times, it doesn't leave any brush marks in there. And they do lay down really well. So yeah, not my usual approach. I normally do like to airbrush as much as possible, but it's a simple kit, like I say, and the paint doesn't look too bad at all. I think if I was going to change anything, I would have left the exhaust tips loose, not glued them on, and maybe molotowed them so they were chrome. Yeah, that may be the only difference that I've done, but I could still do this now. Now, to wire the engine, I've got a multitude of different wires you can see here. I did originally plan on doing yellow, but the yellow wire I've got is not very yellow. It's like an off yellow, so wasn't too happy with that colour. So I opted to go black, which I believe is factory anyway. So yeah, I went with black wire in the end, just because I think it would look better. All I'm going to do is wire up our distributor. So we're going to strip the very tip of the wire with my wonderful wire cutters, kind of sent from my buddy Andy Callis many years ago. Quick test fit, I've drilled right into these. They're very, very deep, just to make sure everything sits well. It does. A little yabba dabba glue, a little dab of glue on the wire, pop it in. It's thick CA glue, so it will set very quick. And then just leave a generous amount left behind, so we know we'll have no issues wiring it up. And again, we can repeat that for the other ones, all 9 of them. Just strip the end. A quick test fit. Always test fit in case the wire is too long. There we go. Dab of glue. In we go. Snip off the excess. Job done. Nice and simple. I've zoomed in on this one so you can see this final one. Little dab of glue in place. See, now that one was a little bit too long, so we need to snip it. Just take the very end off. We don't need a lot of wire sticking through, but it's the wire that actually gets glued in because the hole's not big enough for the actual insulating to go through as well. So there we go. Just repeat that from all of them, and we'll have a nicely, pretty easy to do wire distributor. Not too bad at all. Now, this isn't going to have the firing order correct. I've been pulled for this before by people on YouTube. You've got the firing order wrong. Well, it's okay, because I don't think there's much chance of this engine starting. If you know how to get the firing order right, so be it. I'm not that bothered. I'm here for the aesthetics, just so it looks like a wide engine. I'm not too bothered if the HT leads are in the right order. It basically is what it is. And there we go, all wired up. Just spreading them out. Good to go. Now the wheels, 2 sets of wheels in these. I think, off the top of my head, we're going for the Krieger SS, are they? Whatever they're called. I forget now, with the appropriate tyres. So we're going to clean up the seams with a scalpel. Actually really nice clean tyres with the appropriately embossed names on the side. So we're going to get the wheels built up and then infill the writing on the side of the tyre in white using a paint marker pen. So a quick clean up with a knife. Very easy to do, not really much on these at all. And then haphazardly using a micro brush to paint the inside of the wheel. This is the bit that can be seen through the wheel itself. So to me, it looked like a brake disc, drum, whatever it is supposed to be on this car. So the wheels in place. Now I opted to leave the kit chrome because it was actually pretty decent on the wheels. I was going to dual coat it, kind of semi-matte coat it, but looking at it, they look pretty good. So I've opted to leave them as is. So a generous amount of CA glue in the back of them. Pop the wheel in place, push it down. Now I will paint these later on. I should have done it at this stage, but now I was committed. I was like, I haven't painted those. And you can normally see it from the outside. So we will paint them later on. But for now, just want to get these assembled. And as you can see, I've got my Tamiya visor on. I've got my Edding paint marker pen. We're just going to touch it and allow a capillary reaction to carry the paint around the lettering. It's fiddly. It's very, very fiddly, and you will get a bit of excess paint come out the side. And it's the easy way to get rid of that is to get some Mr. Hobby leveling thinner on a very pointy, sharp cocktail stick, or well, not cocktail stick, cotton bud, and just gently wipe off any excess. So it's fiddly to do, but the end result looks really good. So that's what we're going to do. So they're nice tyres as well. They are really nice, well marked. Look really good. There we go, with both sides done. We've got a little bit of excess paint where we don't want it. So a little bit of Mr. Hobby leveling thinner, a very sharp pointy Tamiya cotton bud, and we just wipe off any excess we don't want. So a little bit of care and attention adds a nice detail to the wheel. We'll pop a wash in these later on as well, Tamiya panel line wash. There we go. Seats, now, very, very simple interior. I could have gone and done all sorts of this, but I thought, you know what, we're going to do black on black. So we're going to have black carpet, black seats, with a little bit of... I did plan to add wood decals, but wood decals are not very good. So I opted out of it in the end and just left it all black. Probably a little bit of a... What's the word? Opt-out, kind of. Bit of a... yeah, I should have done it. But yeah, I couldn't really mask the inside properly to get the wood decals down. The wood decals I've got require a backing. They won't show through on black. And to mask all these parts would have been an absolute nightmare. So I opted out, to be honest. I kind of chickened out. But either way, to assemble the seats have just been cleaned up. We glue the backs to the front. Again, perfect fit. No problems whatsoever. So a bit of Tamiya extra thin mix. Give it a squeeze together and leave it overnight to fully dry. And the steering wheel, just clean it up with a sander, and the dashboard as well, just where the screw locating points have been. So nice, simple, like 6 parts interior. Very, very simple to do. And there we go. So we've got no decals for the dials, nothing at all. So you got to think sometimes, how much do you want to put into it? And every now and then, I'm quite happy to cut corners in a way. Yes, it is what it is. So, air cleaner, we're going to paint the silver center part and then hand paint the black lower part. So we've got some low model air silver here with a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush. And we're going to very gently paint the silver trim, which would be the mesh intake, I take it. On the outside, it needs a steady hand and good eyes. And again, I've got my Tamiya visor on. Then I've got my magnification 2 is where I normally have it on. Like I say, steady hand, good paintbrush, good paint. Don't put too much paint on the paintbrush, and you shouldn't get any problems at all. And if you do, the beauty of putting water-based paint over lacquer is it'll wipe right off. A little bit of water, that wasn't spit, it didn't lick it, definitely didn't lick it. You can wipe the paint straight back off. So any overpainting comes off really easy, which is part of the reason I love lacquer paint and detailing with water-based paints. You can undo 1,000 mistakes that nobody would ever know. The Winsor Newton Series 7 brushes, I highly rate these. I know a lot of people say they're expensive, but they outlive other brushes tenfold. If you take care of them, they really do. And these are my beta brushes. These are brushes I use day in, day out for everything from water-based, alcohol, lacquer paint, everything. They do get really mistreated, and they still keep performing flawlessly. Clean them properly after use, and they just keep coming back. So they're worth the money. They're not that expensive. You only need 1 or 2. You don't need a whole host of them. But I would recommend them for detail painting because they are very, very good brushes. They are definitely my go-to. I've used them for years. So with the air cleaner silver painted, there's a few parts on the engine I want to paint. There's this valve. I've absolutely no idea what it is. I'm not going to lie. But I've seen it was silver on another car, so I painted it silver. And then we've got the black to do on the lower part of the cleaner as well. And this is a case of using your brush, and finding the straight edge. So you need a really steady hand here. There's no going back. If you get black onto that silver, you have to repaint it all. So a nice steady hand here, working your way around the cleaner box itself. And this is Vallejo Model Colour Black. This is the brush paintable black. It's been thinned with a drop of water. And as you can see, it goes down really well. With nice even coats. There's our cleaner done. Like I say, real shame we haven't got the decal for it, but I guess it is what it is, isn't it? It's one of those things. Don't want any comments about my cup of tea either. I do not like strong tea at all. Literally get shown the tea bag for about 5 seconds and the rest of it's milk. Yeah, it's just how I like my tea. Oil filter, I decided to paint in black. Could have been any colour in the world, but I decided to do it in black. I had black out, so black will do. And as you can see, we've still got the transmission to paint on the engine as well, which will brush paint next, I think. So, like I say, clean these brushes well. They'll last you a long time. I think I've had one of these for about 8 years and recently just retired it to an oil paint brush. So they do last well. We painted the starter motor black as well, and we've got some of the Vallejo Model Air silver again with the Tamiya flat brush. I'm just going to paint the transmission on the engine. So the back end, we can just put it on like normal, and the front just needs to be careful and follow around with the transmission bolts to the engine or where it would in real life. So, like I said, the Model Air are good. They're pretty thin. You don't need to thin these at all. The metallics go down really well. I recently bought the steel, gold, super rich gold, and the copper, which I've not used the latter three just yet. But they are beautiful paints. I'm sure we'll see them in use in the future. Got the auxiliary belts with the cooling fan in place. So a little dab of glue on there. And then we can grab our alternator, which we've kept in the kit chrome. And with a little dab of CA glue on there as well. We can glue that in place and pop that to one side. We're going to cut our distributor, stalk, stem, whatever you want to call it, to size. And then pop it in place. Doesn't need any glue this. It holds itself in really well. So we just push it home, a little bit of a test fit, have a look. And then we can start looking at which way we want to route these ignition leads. Now, we do have the exhaust manifolds to be careful of, so we need to make sure we go underneath those. And again, if it's the wrong way, I do apologise. Like I say, I don't know anything about these cars at all. I'm just winging it, trying my best to build the kit. But we're going to cut them to size, bend over the end with the tweezers. A quick test fit, a little dab of glue on each one before it goes in as well. And just go around and wire the engine up. Now, like I say, number one, I'm hoping I've drilled these in the right place. I probably haven't, and I put them in completely the wrong area. And number two, this isn't in firing order. Unless I've done it by some sheer fluke, I know it's not in firing order, so I don't hear anybody complaining the firing order is wrong on a plastic model. Because I've had it before. I don't need it, okay? It's not going to start. I won't be turning it over. So I'm not too worried about being in the wrong firing order. I know some people like to be authentic, and that's fair enough. I am not one of these people. So we're just going to get the ignition leads in so that they kind of look okay. Adds a bit of detail to the engine. I'd rather put them in wrong than not put them in at all. So it is what it is. And there we go. Like I said, it's a case of going around, put them all in. Be aware where the manifolds go in the exhaust, because this is going to have to fit underneath. Make sure you've got enough room to pull them down like so. And then with them all in place, we can put a bit of glue where the manifolds go. So this is that really thick glue from Amazon. It's linked in the description down below, my Amazon store. You get two 20-gram bottles for about £6. It's really, really good. And these super glue tips are fantastic. Precision tips are great for getting glue in exactly the right place. So there we go. There's the manifolds in place, or one of them anyway. There's the other one in place. We can get our inlet manifold in now as well, which it already is, to be honest, and our carbs. So we painted the carbs in a titanium gold colour. And they fit in nice and snug. Like I say, the fit of the kit, I can't complain at all. It's been really good so far. Couple of dabs of glue on the front. We got our auxiliary belts, alternator, and fan in place. And then our air cleaner. On top, 2 locating points. Make sure you get it the right way. And there we go. There's our basic engine assembled. Happy with that. Onto the chassis now. We've got the rear transmission. So we've got the rear differential, leaf spring suspension, the drive shaft, prop shaft, and the exhaust system to glue in. So several locating points on the chassis. So we just add a little bit of a little dab of CA glue where required and start on the larger ones. They did need a bit of a squeeze to push them in place. Like I say, fantastic fit on the kit. I can't fault that at all about this. And just make sure everything's fitted, everything's straight and lined up. And there we go. No problem at all. Not bad. And then the engine itself. Now, a couple of dabs of glue on the 2 support cradle mounts at the front, and then transmission mount at the back. Now, would have been much easier to put the drive shaft, prop shaft, we call them in the UK, in place first before mounting the engine, rather than getting the engine in place and glued in perfectly, and then spotting out and put the drive shaft in, and then having to finagle it, you can have that word, by bending it slightly to get it in place. So yeah, put that in first before you glue the engine in place. Don't be a dummy. There we go. And the wheels, a very satisfying little click, and these fit in place very, very well. I was a bit worried at first, thinking, oh, they're not going to click in. And it's a very gentle, satisfying click, and they're in. Like I said, we're going to paint the back of them. We'll do those silver next time we're in the paint booth. But they fit on really well. And that's onto the interior. And like I say, we're going to go black on black. I'm not going to muck around on this. There's not a lot of detail in there. So we're going to go classic black on black. So we're going to prime Mr. Servicer 1500 black. My girlfriend Hannah always does my flocking for me because it causes so much mess in the cave. I end up finding clear coats for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards that I've now refused to do it. And even when I've done it in the house, away from the cave, it gets all over me. I bring it in the cave and I still find it in my clear coat. So Hannah does it in the house. Nice and simple. It does have a textured floor on this one, which is actually quite nice. So you could probably paint it and leave it should you wish. But I want to do that partial shelf as well. So we'll get it all primed and then we're going to paint it in LP5 and then we'll come in with an enamel matte black. And that will be our base for our flocking to get it in place. So it's going to, like I say, prime everything up with Mr. Servicer 1500 black. And use Tamiya LP5 semi-gloss black for the leather. Don't think it would have been real leather back in the day, would it? It'd be like vinyl seats. Very sticky and sweaty. But just a couple of coats of this on each part. Like I say, become a big fan of the Mr. Servicer 1500 black. Although I do really wish Tamiya would make a black primer in their range of primers, but you never know. And just a quick test fit to check the stance. Looks good. It's not exactly where it's going to be yet because we've not got the interior in. But the back end's low. Front end rides a bit high, which is about right, I think. And then a couple of hours later, we've got some Tamiya LP5. And we're going to hose this on a bit. We want this to be really semi-gloss black. So I'm going to put some quite wet coats down. So we start off with a nice light coat all the way around and then straight in with a wetter coat. Then we can repeat that for all the parts. Can't beat the LP paints, they are absolutely beautiful, paint absolutely perfectly. This is thinned about 60% with Tamiya lacquer thinner retarder, 16 psi, 0.35 or 3 iWatt HPC plus. They paint absolutely stunningly. They do really paint really well. Downside is they absolutely reek. Not quite as bad as the Mr. Colours with the Mr. Hobby Leveling Thinner, but they are quite noxious. And there we go, that's interior painted, and Hannah's very kindly flocked it with some flocking. You can still see the paint underneath because it's still drying. That will slowly dissipate away as the paint dries off. And with a little application of CA glue where required, we can glue our seats in place. Like I say, going to be a very simple interior. I'm not spending a lot of time messing about in here because there's not that much to see really. So it's black on black, black carpet. We'll add a couple of little chrome bits to the dashboard probably. Use one of our paint pens to add a bit of black detail here and there to the dashboard too. So here we go, it's one of the Edding black paint pens. They're great, these things. Just pull the paint through. It is proper paint. And because they've got a nice precision nib on them, you got a bit of detail. So we've done it to like the radio controls, the heater controls. Just add a little bit of interest to it. Try and make it look a bit more, well, a little bit less monotone, I suppose. But a big fan of these pens. They're good. They're not cheap. And I've got several of them in all different colours. They do take a while to dry. So if you're going to do this, leave it alone for some time. And then we grab our silver one. And we'll do our horn push, pull. It's for the horn, this, isn't it? On the steering wheel. We'll do that in silver as well, just to give it a bit of detail. So like I say, check out these pens. Edding paint marker pens. Just Google them. You only get two nib sizes. You get this precision one and a much bigger one. I got one of each in each colour. They're not cheap, but they are very, very good. And it is proper paint in there. And they do really well. And same as before, if you get a little bit too much on, there's a little GTX logo on the dash. We can get a sharp, pointy cotton bud. And just wipe off any excess like so. Now we've got the pistol grip shifter. Yes, I know this should have a wood grip on it. It doesn't. It's going to have a black one. Why? Because I want it to be black. As simple as that. I know it should be wood. It's not. Mine's a black handled pistol grip shifter. Alright. So you have to envision my vision of a full black interior with the chrome trim of the actual shifter itself. And there we go. For a simple interior, it's alright, I suppose. Nothing to write home about. Hannah's flocking looks good. A little bit of chrome detail work we added to it looks good. And with the interior temporarily placed in, and the chassis on the body and taped down to hold it where it should be, I'm happy with that. You can see I just need to hold it down. We can glue that in place later on. Stance looks good. The wheels look good. I'm more than happy with that. The exhaust don't look too bad either. It doesn't look bad at all. And there we are, that's where we're at today. So plenty of progress. Like I said all through the video, it's a really simple kit. Not a high power count kit at all. So it's not going to be a long drawn out build. Next up, we've got to polish the body. We need to mask off and paint all the chrome on the body. We need to chrome the bumpers because the bumpers are quite heavily scratched. So I know the chrome will come off easily. So I'm probably just going to GX2 over the top of them in gloss black. And we'll use the same chrome on them we're going to use on the windows, so all the chrome matches, which will probably be Super Hobby Mr. Hobby Super Metallic Chrome is what I'll probably use. So that is the plan, and that's what we'll do in the next one. Then we've got lights, glassware to put in, like I say, flat and polish the body, and that's it. It's pretty much done. We can move on to the next project, which I already know what it is, but we'll discuss that in the bench update that's coming in a couple of days. I'll probably finish this. I think I'll go back and do the bench update and we'll catch up on this and the Audi RS6 we recently finished as well. Still got the Lancia Delta on the go from Motor Hero. So if you're following that build, that'll keep going. And after that's finished, we're going to do the 12 scale Ferrari 250 GTO, which if you've seen the review of that, looks an epic kit. And I'm really looking forward to doing that one. And we're going to do Tamiya's Porsche GT2 as one of my next builds as well. So that'll be an interesting build as well. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed watching that. If you're not taking part in the USACC content creators group build, go over to it's called the USACC group, I think it is, on Facebook. And if not, check out the Lucas C channel or Mark Batson's channel on YouTube. And if you're watching and you don't normally, interact with my videos, if you're watching because they're solo, it's always good seeing new people. I'm no expert on American cars at all. I know nothing about them at all. I just like to look at cars and, yep. I like these. They're cool cars. That's a cool colour as well. So you are going to see plenty of American cars off me in the future. I've got a whole stash of them now. So yes, you will see plenty in the future. So if you're new to watching the channel, say hello. All right. As always, if you want to support the channel and keep these videos going and the daily live streams, there's a Patreon me link down below. You get 2-week early access. You become a tier 2 or higher. And you get a monthly live stream with some giveaways as well. And I'm going to start adding more additions to the tiers as well over the few coming weeks. I'm going to think of a few more things to add to not only keep people as patrons, but also entice more people in. So stay tuned for that. And there's links to everything else down below: ISM, YouTube, my own personal channel, the Facebook page and forum, UMP Retail, Off Air Hangout group, Live the Bench page. There's a link to my Amazon storefront. We can get a lot of products I use. There's also a huge list of all the products I use in my videos. Email address, you get in touch with me. A link to my scale mates. So you look at all my stash, should you want as well. It's all down below in the description. And as always, make sure you sub to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, click the bell notifications to get notified of all the latest videos. And please leave a comment. Love reading all your comments. Love all the feedback I get on the videos. I do try and respond to them all. It's quite hard to do. It can become quite time consuming, but I do try and respond to most people if I can. And if you've got any questions for me, I haven't got a question today. If you've got any questions for me, fire away. Ask me anything you want, any question in the world. Let's see what we get. No one ever asks me a question when I do this. But if you've got any questions or ask, fire away. There we are. Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.